What's up? What's up? Let's talk about family. Welcome back to a new season of Let's Talk About It. I'm your girl, Red Gal Sasha. Normally, I'm here to talk my shit, but today that's not what we're about. We are doing artist feature and up and coming artists. What we're doing is we are now paying it forward to artists just like us on the same entertainment platform, giving them a spotlight to express what their careers is, how they get their dreams off. So, what we're going to do is we're going to welcome them. If you want to look at anything in the comments as far as like their socials, I will put them in the comments. I'll show you their artistry work. So right now, today, I'm going to introduce Wade Simmons. Wade Simmons is a Chicago native. He's a young up and coming cinematographer. He's also a black mortician. So we want to get into all of these things and divulge into how he got to be where he is, and we're gonna embrace him and let's just vibe out in this. Okay, it's a take time out and pay it forward, and this is what we're here. We support black right now. So what we're doing is as we support black, we are going to put a spotlight on every minority, black and brown brother and sister, as many as I can, touch as many people, and I pay it forward the same way I do it as on my podcast. So go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Wade. Wade, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good.
That's great.
So just give us a brief background about your childhood, Wade. Basically, just tell us like how you got started.
All right. Well, so again, I'm Wade Simmons. I am a Chicago native, originally from the west side of Chicago, kind of raised in between the west side, the south side, and the south suburbs. So that's pretty interesting within itself. But yeah, I grew up, on the west side of Chicago. Always wanted to be a funeral director from childhood. Always wanted to be a filmmaker from childhood. So that's nothing new. But my interest in film kind of came about. I remember like when we were, I don't remember how I was, but we were on the west side of Chicago and we were at this lady named Tila house because she used to do my grandmother's hair, my great grandmother's hair, and my great great grandmother hair, as well as my great auntie hair. So she was kind of like the family beautician, and we would go over her house, and a lot of times she would like be playing different movies and stuff. And she played this one movie called The Crooklyn's by Spike Lee, and I fell in love with that movie. And it's like, I know that for the rest of my life, that's probably what I would want to do. So when I went to high school, joined like art club. I wrestled, and we had a teacher by the name of Miss Anderson, and she was like, what you all want to do after you graduate? So I'm like, I want to be a funeral director. So Miss Anderson called one of the local morticians in Chicago. She like, I got a young man. He wants to be a funeral director. So she called him. He told me show up in a gold tie, white shirt, and a black suit. And so I started working in the funeral business in high school. And so I'm
Oh,
still doing it to this day. So that's kind of how that happened.
oh, well, okay. So, and we know in our community, there's not that many African American or minority morticians, and just in general. So that up in minority businesses, it gives a spotlight that we can have the option to have other careers aside from sports and entertainment as well. So in the road to cinema, did you go to college or anything for?
Yes. I
Okay.
went to college for both. So what happened was I spent a lot of time going to Malcolm X College on the west side of Chicago. They actually had a mortuary science program, but I didn't do theirs. I went to a school called Worsham. So once I was able to get into Worsham College of Mortuary Science, I actually went there and I had to start over. So I ended up not graduating until 2018. But what ended up happening was in 2018, we still had to take these exit exams. So before you can sit for the national board exam to be a licensed mortician,
Hmm.
we had to pass these exit exams. And so it was taking me a while to pass the exit exam. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't pass this exit exam, I'm gonna have to find another career. So I thought about like joining like my family in the plumbing business. So I flew out to Vegas to work with my uncle for like a week or so. And I went to work with him and I'm like, you know what? My grandfather and my uncles both are master plumbers, but this is just
That's not for
not my
you.
jurisdiction. Yeah, it's
Right.
like so I'm like, so I remember being at home and I was praying. I'm like, Lord, if I'm gonna go back to school, I'm like, I'm gonna go back for something I like. So I ended up going to film school. And so right when I went to film school, while other people was telling me you should focus on getting your funeral director license first, like right when I went to film school, I was still going out to the other school when I was off taking the exit exam. And so right when I got in film school, I ended up passing the funeral director test. And then after I graduated film school, I went out to the school to take the embalming side, which is the science. And so I was able to kind of get both degrees like right at the same time, finally, because at the mortuary school, we couldn't even get our degrees until we passed both tests. So it's just crazy, but it's like God worked everything out after I went to film school.
So break it down how it, like, well, we're gonna break up both of your careers, but break it down to how, like, what's the steps in the process for people that are possibly interested in mortuary science and becoming in the funeral services business.
Well, that's a great question. So the first thing I would tell anybody that's interested in being a mortician, I would tell you first, find a local funeral home and just kind of volunteer maybe. And if you can volunteer, I know, look, the cost of living is high right now, so a lot of people ain't doing too much volunteering, but I would say volunteer at a funeral home and just get a feel for being there. And if you like it, then I would say enroll in school for it, because you do have to go to school for it, and it's a lot of science. It's a lot of learning things about different religions, learning the history of funerals. So it's a lot, because when you go to school to be a funeral director, like they teach you a lot about the laws, because every state is different. So like here in Illinois, you have to have both license, which is embalming and the funeral director license, which in some states you can have a funeral director license, but not an embalming license, or just an embalming license. But in Illinois, in our state, you have to have both. Now, I'm also certified as a ranger in California. I'm working on being a fully licensed funeral director in the state of California as well. So, but yeah, I would tell anybody, like, and like just volunteer at a funeral home, see how you
Hmm.
like it. Every funeral home is not the same, so try to find somewhere that you're comfortable being at, and some people that'll really look out for you and actually teach you. Because sometimes when you go to school for something, the academic side is a lot different from from the
The
hands-on
actual
side at
work.
times. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I'm telling you, a
that
lot
was
of us, yeah, because a lot of us that work, because I worked in the funeral business years before I even got into mortuary college. And it was tough for me, because sometimes going into it, like, well, I do this every day, but it's totally different.
is totally different. Well, is the are the hours different from everybody? Like, how does that weigh into your family life? And
Oh,
then your hobbies as well, because it's not a hobby. That's your second career. So how does that play into that? Does it
so
do they overlap? Have you ever
uh
did like docu series on the things that you experience inside of a mortuary?
yeah, well, yeah, you see a lot from dealing with families and things like this. But I always tell people, like, the more interesting side of the funeral business is similar to other businesses in the regard that you have to deal with people. But you
Right.
got to think about it, like you're dealing with families and people at the worstest time of their life, and that's not, you have to really have a passion for it, and you have to understand that not every circumstance and every situation is the same. Yeah, every state have their laws, how they do things, but when you're dealing with people, it can be rough at times, because you have to think about it. Like, you may have a great grandmother who lives to be 86 years old, and then she has her children and grandchildren, and then you got one person in charge and life insurance policies and all that stuff. So that get ugly sometimes.
Right. It most definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's take a switch over to cinematography. Have is this the How do you have time as a busy man, as a mortician, and now we're making movies? And so, where did you get your start with cinematography? Like you said, you were there any other like actors or movie directors that inspired you to want to,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
it was, yeah, from early childhood, Spike Lee, George Lucas. those
Right.
was more of my inspirations. And like I mentioned those two because like
Right.
I like that Spike Lee, like when he started out, he said he had to act in his own films because because sometimes he didn't always have the money to pay everybody. And so I can relate to that because like when I first started in film, I never really cared about acting or nothing like that. But the first time when I did my first actual short film for my web series, the actor that was supposed to play my part, he was supposed to actually play me. He did not show up, and so I had to
Oh,
pay everybody to be there. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm not gonna say I'm the greatest actor in the world, but playing myself shouldn't be too hard.
right. It should be too hard.
So
That'd be easy. So are you working on any new projects right now?
absolutely. So right now we're in the process of finishing up a documentary on pro wrestling because I also trained for that as well for about 2 years. This was during like
Okay.
the pandemic. So that was pretty cool. So right now we're just going back and just kind of shining some light on some of the up and coming wrestlers on the independent scene because I love the indie scene, whether it's film or wrestling, because like it's so many talented people out here. Like I was just had the privilege of meeting another pro wrestler from New York. Actually, his name is Isaiah Wolf. You ought to check him out. But he's a young black wrestler. He's been in the business for quite a while on the indie scene. And he's doing some amazing stuff. So it's kind of nice when you meet people that are because like it's like we see the people that are in the limelight all the time and we know them, but it's always interested in knowing more about their journey before they got to where they were. So it's like a lot of up and
Right.
coming talent right now, they're on their journey. And so I think it's just kind of fun to kind of share their stories as well.
Okay, so where can we see a lot of your web series being featured? Where can we see some of your films? Drop a couple of places at indie, indie film festivals and things that because we don't know about them. We won't know about them unless somebody mentions them.
Yeah,
So,
well, I know like
good.
most of my work, I'm on a platform called Vimeo. I
Okay.
know YouTube is really big. YouTube is also a great place, but I just chose Vimeo because when I was in film school, like everybody was putting stuff on YouTube. So I'm like, I'm gonna just try this Vimeo out because I didn't know much about Vimeo and I actually kind of like it. So it's just kind of more of a habit for me. But I would tell everybody that like really you should put your work on multiple platforms. Like I've spoken to Tubi about possibly putting some things on there because I know like the pro wrestling documentary. I think I maybe possibly maybe putting that on Tubi. I'm not sure just yet, but it's good to like be on all platforms because like to me, it's not necessarily just about the platform, it's about the artist because if the artist draws traction to that platform, the people gonna come where you are. So I think it's more important for the artist to focus on kind of building and branding themselves as opposed to just focusing on the platform. Because the platform, to be honest with you, certain people when they want your audience, they're gonna look out for you and make sure you're compensated, you know.
Right.
But so to me, I would tell any artist to focus on building your brand, and the platform is cool, but I think it's more important to build your brand.
Building your brand. So, like I said, make sure you guys go and check out some of his content on Vimeo. I'm familiar with Vimeo, and I love that one. That's like one of my platforms that I really, really love. And here's the thing, you're putting me on because I really don't even really use it like that. I've had it for years and never
Wow.
really played with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play with it myself. I'm interested in cinematography, but as far as like on a digital platform, and I really don't even really know where to go. So this was a really, dope conversation to have with you. Go ahead and tell artists, like how if they want to contact you, so for collaboration, go ahead and just go ahead and give yourself some flowers in the middle of this, and just let us know, what they can, contact you if you're looking for any up and coming projects. Are you looking to collab with any, funeral other directors in different states where maybe you do a documentary on up and coming black, morticians.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
said,
a great
forensic
idea.
science is a really dope place to be, and mortuary science. So if you're into like biology or you're into like that sci-fi, where it's into like this is your place.
Yeah, so you can find me on again on my work on Vimeo mainly. My Instagram is Wade Jedi 99. You can find me on Facebook, Wade Simmons, and you can reach me by my Gmail as well. I'll give you that information. But yeah, look, I'm a chatterbox, so I'm always willing to help anybody and just connect because again, I'm enjoying the journey. I'm not necessarily looking for a destination because I always tell people everything that you think you're gonna have to do when you get to wherever you're trying to reach you should be doing those things now. So, you have to connect with people. You have to talk with people because again, like I know that we live in this like really big social media and technological age, and social media is a beautiful place, even though it's some negative things. But I think we need to have the more mindset of us building together and spreading more love and positivity because again, the world is a beautiful place. It's not a lot of bad things happen, but it's not a bad place. It's the people that make things what they are. So I'm just encouraging everybody to kind of change the narrative a little bit and just be as helpful as you can to people with no ulterior motives.
Right. Always the option, as you know, that's my favorite saying, you guys, is always to pay it forward. So you did mention that you were a wrestler. Um,
Absolutely.
so explain how that world goes and what the platform for that is.
All right. So what happened was right after I finished film school, I was trying to make a documentary on pro wrestling. This was around like the pandemic. And so I reached out to a guy by the name of Steve Boz. You look Steve Boz up, he's wrestled all over the world. He was in WWE back when it was called WWF at the time. But I reached out to him and I was telling him, like, I would like to make a documentary. Well, we talked previously, so he knew that I wrestled in high school. And so instead of him letting me make the documentary, he asked me, when are you gonna start training? And so so me and one of
So
my
you
best
went,
friends,
you went, so you thinking you were going to do a documentary and you ended up learning how and having and loving it.
yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And so we actually trained for about 2 years, but I was always at the funeral home a lot. So like they had practice on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And so a lot of times I was able to go to practice on Thursdays, but I was at the funeral home mainly Friday, Saturday, Sunday all day. So what ended up happening was like I went to practice when I wanted to, because again, like I didn't get into wrestling to like go to TNA or WWE or New Japan. I got into it as a hobby because I already kind of had my hands full with filmmaking and working in the funeral business. So like wrestling was kind of more like an outlet for me because like at one point in my life I had got diagnosed with this. It was like this vocal disorder called spasmodic dysphonia. Like if you look up some of the earlier interviews I've done early on, my voice, if you listen to like the interviews, like my voice used to strain a lot. And so what ended up happening was they were trying to like get me to do like this Botox injection. And so I was like, no, I'm like, I believe God to heal my voice or whatever. So wrestling was kind of like that fun time for me to kind of, because it was weird because like when I was happy, like my
Mm-hmm.
voice sounds normal like it does now, but when I was stressed, it was straining really bad. So what ended up happening was instead of me working at the funeral home full time, I had left the funeral home that I was working with at, and I started my own business where I pick up loved ones for different funeral homes. So different funeral homes now, they'll call me if I'm available to make a removal for them or a transfer as we call it nowadays. But so that's what I do now. I run my own mortuary transportation company, and so I just work for whoever calls me, and they can call you any time of day. So see, I know
Right.
you asked me the question earlier, like how do I manage it? Yeah, it's just if I'm available, then I take the call because one thing about being in the funeral business is you don't pick and choose your
Your
hours.
hours. Right.
Um, I mean, because you don't know when or where something's gonna happen, and so if somebody calls you, it's like you have to go. Like I had to work on Mother's Day. I worked on the 4th of July. I worked on Father's Day. I mean, in the funeral business, you really don't
You
have
don't
any off
know.
days.
Right. Right. So, you mentioned that you have your own funeral business, your own mortuary services. So, tell everybody where that's located and what services that you provide. What do you suggest as far as like services, life insurances? What do you suggest?
Well, I would tell anybody, like as far as life insurance, I would tell them because I actually worked in life insurance temporarily. I did have a temporary license, but I kind of stepped away from that because I kind of got my hands really full. But I tell people this: get a whole life and a term life policy. I think both policies are pretty much good. I think it's always good personally to have multiple, because you just never know. You want to make sure that you have your family situated, but not only in death, but just in life. I think that it's just good to put money up. But I would tell anybody, get a whole life and get a term life. I think both policies are good in certain instances. You know, I think it's best to have both, not just one. I think me personally, I believe in getting whole and term life just because you want to have multiple policies, because you just never know.
Right, it's going to cover certain things. And what services do you provide as far as at your funeral home?
So right now, I just have a mortuary transportation company. So like my service is not necessarily open to the public, but it's open to different
Okay.
funeral homes. So basically, what happens is that if a funeral home has like after hour calls, or one of their other directors can't take the call, then they would call me, and then me and my team, we would go make the removal for them. You know.
Okay.
So right now, that's what I'm doing right now, because it's like, to be honest with you, like I kind of like that side better right now, because like for years I worked services, I worked at the funeral
Yeah.
home all day, and so now I'm just I work more on call, which is to me better because like I said, I work with different people, so it's like I'm not just at one funeral home. Like whoever
Right.
called me,
Just
if
that,
they
right. You,
leave.
you get to meet different people and different cultures. Well, I most definitely appreciate this time. So, did you want to tell us anything else before we get ready to come to an end? I really enjoyed this conversation. Um, Once again, I encourage you, if you're into cinematography, go ahead and look at things that are in his that are on his Vimo. I have went on ahead and dropped it in the links. If you want to, go ahead and message me on the Business Count on Let's Talk About It page on Facebook or Instagram, or even on YouTube. Go ahead and message me. I will go ahead and drop his personal social medias to you, inboxes to you, link up with him. Like I said, spread. It's always good to support. So what our biggest thing, our biggest goal is that we always want to support, support, support. I appreciate you, Wade, and thank you for connecting with me and networking with me. Hopefully, we get to do another one when you have another up and coming series, so I can kind of feature that and we can kind of drop some clips and your short films, and see where that goes. And then hopefully, when if once you finish, doing your other licenses for other states as well, that you will, let us know about that so we can feel, but we can connect with you guys and just see where you at and where your growth is. Also, just let everybody know where you're located because this might not reach just people locally where we're at. It might be in your city, or maybe somebody's reaching out. Things happen randomly, especially in death. So just let us know where you're located.
Yeah, so you can find me anywhere around the Chicago area or the Chicago suburbs area, and then I'm also kind of right now kind of back and forth between here and California. So you might find me in the Anaheim area. So just you never know, just but right now I'm just enjoying the journey. I'm not too worried about the destination. Just taking life one day at a time. So if I can leave you with any advice, I would tell anybody always keep God first, always love people and treat them right, because no matter who you are in this world, everybody is somebody. So keep love in your heart and treat everybody right.
All right. Wait, stay on for a little bit. Thank you. Let's talk about a family. I do appreciate you guys pulling out with this episode. Will air next week on the weekend after Christmas, and we will see all of the socials. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a part two, see where he's at, um, and link up again. I appreciate you guys for coming out. Remember, spread love, not hate, and stay black.